Good evening and welcome to Thinking Re-envisioned. You're just seconds away from the unmatchable Henry G. Noel. Believe me, this is the tune-up your cognition has been waiting on. Here's Henry.
Hi, everyone. Sorry again for the technical difficulties, not only for the past 2 days, but for just now, too. First of all, we started off with a combination of internet company outage and a bad router, which caused the router to go out. And so the internet is back up, the router was replaced, and now we had a rendezvous, a Wirecast issue. So this is, it's just been kind of fun. We'll get this all figured out somewhere down the road. So I'd like to thank Brian and okay, thank you. And I just want to thank Lee and Brian for filling in the time slot for me for last night, and I really do appreciate it. And I hope that you are ready to get back to questioning everything, everything that we've accepted as truth up to now. So welcome to Transitional Radio, where you can mortal up with Brian Brody on All Natural Being and get a heads up on IPM Nation's weekly programming from Sneak Speaks on Sunday evenings at 7. Learn all about copy from Lee Rawley's Copy That Speaks, and get a little heady with me on Thinking Re-envisioned. So we are repeating our 25th episode for the fourth time, Thinking Re-envisioned, due to the technical issues that we've had south of the equator and now up there in the U.S. So I am Henry G. Noel, your host for Thinking Re-envisioned, where we are committed, or should be committed, to making you think, making you question everything. I wish to thank you for joining me this Tuesday evening for Thinking Re-envisioned, where, well, we've been talking about who we are. And this was in reference to, are we physical beings, energetic beings, or a combination of both? Tonight, I want to continue delving into what defines us as us. What I mean by that is, are we living our lives, or have we been living someone else's lives? Now, I'm hoping we will be able to continue our lively discussion from, past Sunday, and see if this really gets with everybody. Now, we are live this evening from our uplink studio in Cuenca, Ecuador, 2 degrees south of the equator. We are broadcasting live on IPMNation.com and Thinking Re-envisioned's Facebook and YouTube pages. And I wish to thank all of our listeners from all around the globe listening on live radio, those listening to our rebroadcasts, and you, our fly-on-the-wall video listeners, for taking the time to tune in, even with all the technical stuff. I'd also like to thank our good friends at Wirecast for making it possible, on occasion, for us to be broadcasting both live and globally. And a big thank you to my brother Wayne for, managing everything that Brian and I seem to throw at him at all different times of the day. So I appreciate it, bro. Thank you. So to all of our listeners who wish to participate in this show, please email me at henry@henrygnoel.com. It is my desire to present a show where everyone can be actively involved, and as actively involved as they wish. Now, we trust that you've had an enjoyable Tuesday thus far, and I hope that continues. So let's get into tonight's topic, okay? So we began this discussion last Tuesday when I proposed the question, are we physical beings, energetic beings, or a combination of both? I introduced both practical and quantum physics to help define our position and our purpose on this planet. Now, on Thursday, we were discussing when life begins. Now, this topic has been commandeered pretty much mostly by politics and religion, and has been at the root of abortion rights advocates for several decades now. Now, many arguments and definitions have been, submitted as to what is life, and I will not go into any of them now. As far as I am concerned, we are misguided by the social idea, and for the sake of simplicity, that life begins when the fetus can survive unaided on its own outside of the uterus. Now, again, I say how arrogant we are, being unable ourselves to create life from nothing, and yet we feel we are qualified to define what constitutes life. Now, it's my contention life begins at conception. And I say this because dead cells do not grow or divide or specialize, and dead cells are without life. Only living cells can grow, divide, and specialize. Now, if these living cells are growing, dividing, and specializing, then they must be alive. And if they are alive, then that should qualify them as life, as far as I'm concerned, anyway. I mean, it's again, this is my contention. So, to continue this evening where we left off, I'd like to present a hypothesis. Now, my hypothetical statement would be we are living someone else's lives. Now, please hear me out. I say this because we have been totally influenced by those who taught us, our parents, our teachers, friends, family, religious and political leaders, as well as corporations, news, and advertising companies. They have all spent untold amounts of time teaching us and creating who we are, how we think and feel, and taught us what it is we believe in. We have spent our lives mimicking what others taught us. If this is true, then all we have done is simply adopted all of what others have taught us. And they are the product of what they were taught. So for us to live our own lives, we must define who we are outside and independent of our learnings. Now, to do this, we would have to recognize the fact that, well, we are but a byproduct of our learnings. Then we would have to begin the process of unlearning everything we have been taught. All of our learnings and all of our belief systems would have to go. Then we would have to begin relearning. So we could re-envision our thinking. Hence the title of this show, Thinking Re-envisioned. Now, we are the product of our upbringing, and therefore all of the belief systems we use to define ourselves, religion, politics, education, careers, our fears, our hates, and our discriminations are from what we have been taught. If we were taught these belief systems, then we learned them from someone else. And it is these belief systems of someone else's teachings we are using to define ourselves. Thus, we are living their lives and not ours. So, I have some questions that I'd like you to think about. So, how do we reconcile all of this? How do we find out who we are and what we believe in if all we have known is what someone else taught us? How do we unlearn? And what is it we relearn? How do we begin living our lives when all we know is someone else's life? How do we define who we really are? Where does our life truly begin? Or are we destined to continue living lives that we have been taught are ours? Now, as Brian says, we were dealt a hand, so why not play it? Well, the problem with that is we are playing it the way we were taught to play it by someone else, and not the way we would have played it if we were free of the learnings of others. So, what say you? What do you think would be the correct path to follow or the correct path to create? How do we stop our present course? Or do you believe the same as the masses do, that in spite of all of our learnings, we are living our own lives and no one has influenced us? Now it's your turn. So let me get into the thread. I'm sure there's not a whole lot there because of the disconnections. Jamie, thank you so much for, and I really appreciate that you're here. Thank you, Rita, and of course my brother Wayne is here because I would not be here otherwise. But these are, to me, serious questions that place us in a true sense of what reality really is. I mean, I was a product of my parents' teachings and my grandparents, um, and and this is how I defined who I was. And it wasn't until I really seriously took serious looks in the mirror and realized that I was turning into my father, turning into my mother. I was saying the same things that they did. And yes, some of this stuff is fabulous and was really good and helped me through my life. But nonetheless, it was their stuff. It wasn't mine. And so I set out on a journey to discover who I was. And what I really wanted to understand about myself, what my fears were, what my rationality was, what my hatreds were, what my discriminations were, and on top of that, what my guilts were and what was creating those guilts. So it was a serious journey. It has taken many, many years to go through. But in coming face to face with myself, what I was what I was taught, what I believed was myself, I learned that that's not who I am. And you go through your whole life, your career, you go through your education, you go through your religious upbringing, you go through everything that we do, all of our belief systems, believing that's who we are. When in fact, I didn't want to be that lawyer, but that's what my father did. Or I didn't want to be this engineer, but that's what my father did. Or I didn't want to be a chef, but that's what my mother was. So I adopted the things that my parents were, as everybody, most people have. And we end up not doing the things we love to do or that we want to do. We do the things that we were groomed to do by someone else. And that qualifies it to being living a life for someone else or someone else's life. And so, my whole intention was to see about generating some thoughts from you guys as to what it is that you think. I mean, I know where I came from, where I grew up, how I grew up, and I realized later on in life, after I've gone through a major careers and in starting to look at the potential of retirement, I realized, wow, I'm not living my life. I'm living my parents' life. And that's not who I am. And so I delved for years and to find out what it is that who am I? What am I all about? And what is it that I want to see happen for me? And what do I want to do as far as when I grow up, that sort of thing. So, we really have to take a serious look at our lives and really reflect on that as what really is our life? When did our life really begin? And what emotional state, what psychological state, what physical state are we going to be in when we decide to leave this life? And decide those separations. The physical separation, when the physical body dies, the energetic self moves on. Is it going to turn around and look back at this life and just laugh and say, "What a waste"? Or is it going to say, "Wow, well, he tried. He realized that he was doing things for other people, doing things the way other people taught him to do it, but he ventured out on his own to try to do what was him." And so, this is the things that I think are serious that we really do need to look at. We really have to take stock in if we're really going to understand who and what we really are. So again, any opinions that you might have, please jump in there and do that. But again, and if you're listening on live radio, please email me, henry@henrynoel.com. I'd like to know your points of view. I mean, everything is connected. Our fabric of our life is so interwoven with all of our learnings, whether they be career, our schooling, our religious upbringing, the way our parents taught us, the way that they were taught. I mean, I don't blame my parents because they simply repeated what they learned. So it's really that simple. But it is a very convoluted, very interwoven tapestry that we call our life. And until we're willing to take a good look at it and a serious look at it, will we understand what it really is all about and what does it really mean to us? Because we're the ones living it. And people that despise their jobs obviously aren't doing the job that they wanted to do. They're doing the job that they were probably trained to go do, and it was from learnings from somebody else. People that are fed up with their major in college, then take and do what you want to do, or don't even go to college if that's the case. You know, it's it's understanding what it is that makes us tick. What is it that really is controlling us? And we can get hypothetical. We can get very spiritual and get into all of the potentials, and the energetic body versus the physical body, and the energetic body is immortal, and therefore, it goes on forever after the body leaves. We can get into all of that. But the bottom line is, look at the mirror. Are you happy with your life? I mean, you were created, you were conceived, you were happy then. When you were born, you were happy. What happened? What happened? We learned. We learned stuff from other people. And somewhere along the line, we buried all that happiness under a ton of unhappiness that we have defined ourselves with. That all of a sudden, someone else's unhappiness becomes ours. And we lose that fine line, that definition of it wasn't mine in the first place. We forget all that. And so we go through our life being sad, or not enjoying our life, being unhappy, being discontent, being incomplete, because we believe we are, because we covered ourselves with all of this stuff from other people, and it's not us. It was not us at all. It was all the stuff that we learned. And so my whole thing is pushing and pushing to get people to understand. Look in the mirror. If you really, your answers are there. Everything, all of your truths are there. You may have to dig really deep to find them, but they're there. And you may not even recognize them. You might, because we don't even know who we are. And that's one of the things I love to ask people. So who are you? Tell me who you are. And usually you get the response, well, I'm a doctor, or I'm a lawyer, or I drive a truck, or I get a profession. No, that's not what I asked you. I'm asking you, who are you? And then, well, I'm a Democrat, or I'm a Catholic, or no, that's not what I asked you. Who are you? And I usually get that deer in the headlight look. Well, then what do you mean? I mean, who are you? If you had to write an essay about yourself, could you put 3 words down that tells me who you really are? Have you really taken time in your life to really look at who you are? No, most people haven't. And that is the issue that we deal with. That's why these segments, that's why I'm trying to do this, to get people to say, all right, who am I? With such a hodgepodge of different stuff and different experiences, we have our learnings, that's one side of it. But then we have our experiences, and our perceptions of those experiences, again, were based on our learnings. So if you were taught to distrust and taught to hate, then you're going to see life through the distrust and the hate. And so your experience in life is going to be that of distrust and hate. If you live your life despising a particular religion, you were taught that, and there may not be any grounds for the reason you feel the way you do, except this is the way we were taught. So we have multitudes of people fearing specific religions, and they were taught this, simply taught it, and aren't together enough to investigate it themselves. Oh, yes, they'll listen to some preacher that will preach how this bookman, this is what it says, and this is what it means, and they're all out to get your heads. Well, that's not true. And therein lies the issue. We listen to other people's opinions that influence us, even as adults, and this is how we govern our life, on someone else's say-so. So again, whose life are we really living? Ours? Or is it a life someone else has programmed for us? You see, you can take this as far out as you really want to go. But the bottom line is, who are you? Who are you? 3 simple words. Who are you? And they are very difficult to answer, because we have been so whitewashed, so painted, so covered with stuff that we identify ourselves with now. And so our answer to who are we usually and should be, I really have no clue. I really have no idea who I am because all of this time we've spent living someone else's life. As crazy as it sounds, that is to me the bottom line of it all. We are not living our lives. We have never lived our lives except as a child. And then that's when the programming began and the learning began. And that's when we started to develop our character. That's when we decided to become just like mom and dad. And we carry that into our adulthood, never realizing we're not making our own decisions. You know, yeah, we may have picked up a toy and this is great and that's the extent of our expression of ourselves, or we drew, or we colored, or we or grabbed dad's paint can and painted walls, which of course got disciplined for afterwards, but and he got to be painted again. But you know, we learned by doing things, and when you're taught to think a certain way or to believe a certain way, we never get to know who we really are. How would we think about it? When Brian again mentioned this thing that this as Kenny Rogers, and I love the song because it makes a whole lot of sense. That what when you dealt a hand, you got to know when to play. You know how to play them. You got to know when to play them, when to fold them. You got to know when to walk away. You need to know when to run. And it's great lyrics because it's really true. The problem is that our assessment of what it is that we're playing came from someone else. That's what we were taught. So how do we play a hand that we were dealt when we don't have a clue how to play it the way we would normally play it? We would only play it the way we were taught to play it. Not saying that it's bad, that it's wrong, but it's not us. It's not who we are. We adopted a persona of someone else and not even realizing that that's what we did. So everybody wonders what is this life for? Why are we living this life? Why are we here? Why did I come here? Why do I stay here? But perhaps it's to learn that we are not what we have been taught, that there is a us, there is a we, there is a me underneath all of this mashugana, all this shroud that we have covered over us. And that's who we need to go find. We're not going to find it out there. You're not going to be directed to do that by political or religious organizations because they want you right where you are. They want you believing that they are the answer. And they give you all the justifications for that. Advertising agencies don't want you to question anything because they want you to buy. And that's what corporations, they want you to buy their products. So they are going to place that in a position or in a light that plays off your learnings, your ego, and gets you to spend, even if you don't need it, but because something wants it, so therefore, well, I got to have it. So we do that. They do and use all of these different things that we've talked about, these little games, this problem resolution solution, where there is no problem, but they create one and we fall into it and believe it. And then, of course, there's a resolution to that situation. It would be this. And so here is the solution. Buy this and you'll be fine. You won't have bad breath and people will love you again. This is the game that's played to us. And we buy it every time because we don't know who we really are. If we understood who we really were, we wouldn't fall for that. We wouldn't need all of this stuff. We would simply understand it's a want, and we might be able to control our wants if we understood that that's what was being advertised to. So understand, and that goes along with our fears, that goes along with our hatred, that goes along with our discrimination, that goes along with the way all of the belief systems that we have, the social categorization, the labels, The things that I've brought up and talked about. How do you be honest with yourself if you don't even know who yourself is? So honesty, first question you better ask yourself, who the hell am I? Who am I? And that's being honest. Why do we fear? What do you fear? Is it really your fear, or did you adopt somebody else's? The hatred. Is it your hate? Do you really, really honestly say you hate anything? That's a powerful word. So if we have adopted someone else's hate, of course we're gonna hate. But is that who you really are? We're gonna discriminate. Are we racist? It's a very important question to ask. Did we learn it, or is it ours? And I believe we all learned it. The guilt that we have been taught to hold on to, because we have this belief, someone else's belief, that when this body dies, it dies. And so there it goes. And now it's time for mourning. No, the body left, but that's not who I am. What runs this body is who I am. It's the energy that runs it. That is forever. That never goes away. That is just there and simply departs the body and goes on its merry way. So why mourn? Because we're taught to mourn. I'd rather celebrate the existence that the person is still there, that they're still out there in a different form, but they're still there. Their energy never went away. So I love to celebrate that, not mourn the death of it, but celebrate the existence of it, that life continues. But we've been taught to mourn. All of these things that we do, we were taught. And so all I'm saying is it's time to draw a line in the sand and say, I'm taking my life back. I don't want this anymore. I want to understand more about who I am. And I'm hoping that that's what you all want to do, is find out more about who you are. 2 more minutes to go. Thank you, bro. And from there, move on and realize life really is cool. In this body, it may be a bit frustrating at times, but life is really cool. And we can live this our way, defining ourselves. But we have to look in the mirror. We have to ask that question, who am I? And why have I been living my entire life of someone else? Because that's what we were taught. Paul. Hi, Paul. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you coming in. It was a bit messed up today, a little bit earlier here, so we are just getting this show recorded and put down. It's the 4th time we've tried to get this 25 episode, so now we've got it. Hi, Janet. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. We're about to wrap it all up, but it's we wanted to go ahead and at least get the show recorded so we can get it out there. And so thank you very much for coming in. I know it's a bit late, but thank you. We got 1 more minute to go. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. I'm going to thank everybody. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Thanks for letting us get through this. Questions that you may have, if you're on the thread, just send me a message. If you're listening on radio or the rebroadcast, henry@henrygnoel.com. Send me your questions. Send me your suggestions. I will reply to you, okay? Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow evening, hopefully without the technical difficulties. Thanks, everybody, and good night. Hasta mañana.